So we are so happy to have a guest on our show tonight.
I know, it's a special treat.
It is a special treat. So we have Rossi, also known as Chef Rossi. She's a writer of many publications such as the Daily News, the New York Post, Time Out New York, and McSweeney's, just to name a few. And she's been the food writer of the Eat Me column for Best Magazine since 1998 and hosts her own hit radio show on WOMR and WFMR in Cape Cod called Bite This, now in its 12th season, and has been featured on the Food Network and NPR and is a popular blogger for the Huffington Post. She's also the owner and executive chef of the Raging Skillet, a cutting-edge catering company known for breaking any and all rules, and she's earned a reputation as the one to call when it's time to do something different. The Raging Skillet's been called a new breed of rebel anti-caterer by the New York Times, the wildest thing this side of the Mason-Dixon line by Zagat, and has been named among the Knot's best of wedding caterers for multiple consecutive years, earning the Raging Skillet the Knot's Hall of Fame. She's got a book that we're going to be talking about today called The Raging Skillet, The True Life Story of Chef Rossi, a memoir with recipes that has also been made into a play. So help me welcome Rossi.
Oh, hello.
Hi there.
Well, that was a great introduction. I feel popular already.
Well, it was wonderful to read that biography, but it was even more wonderful to read your book. Again, it's called The Raging Skillet, True Life Story of Chef Rossi and Recipes. Tell me a little bit about not only your book and this play, but let's get to know you a little bit better as well.
Well, let's see. Where do I start? I guess you would say the reason I wound up being a caterer and a kind of a wild caterer is because I had a really odd childhood. Like, I grew up with this odd combination of being raised Orthodox and white trash. I mean, that's a rare combo. I'm probably the only person you're going to meet who can honestly say that I've had kishka and grits. I mean, that sort of sums it up. And we were like kind of lowly Orthodox. You know, I don't know if you know a little bit about the whole Jewish kosher thing, but, you know, we would have the meat and the dairy dishes separate, and we'd have separate silverware for Passover. I mean, we were doing all of that. And yet we could go to McDonald's and have the fish sandwich, you know, so
Right.
we're definitely lowly Orthodox.
I have to admit, I learned a lot about Orthodox and just about the Jewish community through your book. I grew up in Texas, so this was totally a different experience reading your book.
Excellent. I love knowing that I'm educating a Texan. You know what? My very religious niece, she's like way more religious than we ever were, relocated to Dallas. And I was just like, are you nuts? Like, you're not going to be able to find kosher food in Dallas. She's having a fabulous time. She's trying to talk her whole religious family into moving there. She got a big house, and she's near a bunch of places that she could eat at, and they're doing kosher barbecue, and she's in heaven. She's like the happiest little Jew girl in Texas.
That's wonderful. Dallas-Fort Worth area needs more diversity, so I'm glad that you're
Big time.
spreading it.
They're spreading it big time.
Well, one of the best quotes as far as growing up in your from your childhood portion of the book that I really, really enjoyed, and this is your quote, again, from The Raging Skillet, True Life Story of Chef Rossi. I became a walking message that joy and pride could be felt even by a woman in pants. And I felt that it was during a time that was kind of a rebirth almost for you. You were finally finding yourself in your childhood.
Well, I had a lot of jet fuel that got me through my teen years, and it was really all about rebellion. I mean, I just had this huge fury of rebellion. And I really, really raged against these double standards I grew up with, like where my brother could do whatever he wanted because he was a boy, but my sister and me, you know, would forget it. We couldn't do anything. And I just was like raged against it. And it really kind of fueled a lot of the decisions I made. Not all of them brilliant ones. I mean, I ran away from home at 16 and had a big party and got arrested by the police in New Jersey. And then this leads me to the wildest how I came to New York story. You know, in New York, no one you meet in New York is from New York. I mean, my girlfriend is from New York, but nobody else is from New York. And so it's always a topic of conversation. How did you wind up here? And it's usually, well, I came for love, or I came for school, or I came for a job. And I'm the only one who could say, well, I was sent to live with a Hasidic rabbi who took in wayward Jewish girls. I always win the drink.
Right.
That, in fact, is how I came to New York. And it's a crazy story. My mother had read some newspaper about this Hasidic rabbi in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, who specialized in turning around, bad Jewish kids, especially if they had been brainwashed in a cult. That was his specialty, to de-brainwash them out of that cult and, I would say, into his, but some people might get offended by that. Let's just say in a different direction.
Right.
And so I was this pink-haired punk rock wild child, and my parents shipped me off to the Hasids in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. And they also had neglected to maybe look at the news that year, or they would have known that Crown Heights, Brooklyn in 1981 was one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in New York. And certainly not where you send a naive little teenage punk rock girl who has never even been to Brooklyn before and only ever been to Manhattan on a class trip and things like that. So I had to get educated very quickly. And some very wild and very hysterical adventures happened while I was in Crown Heights. Now, I got into it in Raging Skillet, and it's really in the play. My book, The Raging Skillet, was adapted for the stage by Jacques Lamar, who's a really lovely playwright and a great guy. And it's been touring the country. It's going to Rochester in December, and it's going to be there until December 22nd at the Center Stage Theater in Rochester. It's been to Wellfleet on Cape Cod. It's been to Hartford, Connecticut. It's going to Sedona, Arizona next year, and we're hoping for it to go to Jersey and Manhattan and L.A. and Florida. It's a contagious play. But that gets into the Hasidic exodus, too. And the thing that I'm really jazzed about right now is that I finished my second book, which originally I was calling Escape from Kingston Avenue, but as I was writing it, the title just kind of decided to rename itself, completely out of my control. So it's now called Queen of the Jews. And it's kind of perfect. But I just decided that the story of this little punk rock teenager being shoved in with the Hasids was it needed more than the few chapters that I was able to give it in my first book. And so it needed a whole book just for that adventure. And a lot of very wild, hysterical, and trippy things happen in that neighborhood that you just kind of have to read to believe. Or if you see the play, you have to see it to believe it.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. I enjoyed the first book so much. I cannot wait for the second book. One of the things that I really liked also about the Raging Skillet book, the way that you have some of those recipes. How does that translate into the play? Is that able, do you get into any of those recipes as well?
Oh, yeah. In a fabulous way. Jacques and I came up with recipes that could translate on stage. And so each theater has done it differently, but the first theater did full-on cooking on stage and then fed the audience.
Wow.
And they had totally misjudged what would happen. They had it as their summer sleeper. They thought, we'll give half the staff a vacation. We'll just try to keep the electric bill paid. And it was sold out for 5 weeks. Because if you let people know that the actors are going to be cooking on stage and feeding them, forget it. It created a frenzy. We have had it staged where they couldn't cook on stage, and so the food was made off stage, but they still fed the audience. Rochester's going to do their own spin on it. Got a brilliant director, Tara Weissman, who's been talking to me about food every day. And I think half of it is because of the play and how excited she is, and half of it is because she's hungry.
Right.
It's great. It's a very exciting thing. I mean, how often do you get to go see a play and then have the actors cooking and feeding you? It's pretty great.
Right. Well, and I think that that's wonderful that it could be incorporated into the play because the recipes and just cooking was such a big part of the book as well. What I liked is that as you told the story of growing up and then moving to New York and really becoming a chef, the recipes also got more advanced, a little more elaborate. I mean, starting with the
Mm-hmm.
Snickers and potato chip casserole, all the way up to a Korean barbecued beef dish. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that it could be incorporated into the play as well to keep that flavor, if you would.
Well, it's kind of fun to see, like, as Rossi's growing up, the food's growing up too. But
Right.
do you know what the crazy thing is, though? When I was recipe testing for the Raging Skillet, I did the Snickers and potato chip casserole thing, and I had invented that when I guess I was like 13 years old when I
Uh-huh.
invented that. And I was also, not completely as sober as a 13-year-old should be. But I just assumed it would be terrible. And so when I was recipe testing it, I was just kind of trying to make it not so terrible. But with a very small deviation, I think the only thing I changed was saying, heat it on a low heat instead of a medium heat or something like that. It didn't really need to change the recipe. And it came out so good that I was like, you know what, these things are great. And I put them on a special tasting dinner we were doing with, sometimes we'll invite like 10 or 12 couples to come to our commercial kitchen, and we'll do a gorgeous little tasting dinner. And for dessert, after all of this fancy schmancy food, they got the Snickers and potato chip and marshmallow casserole. And they went insane for it. And I was like, what, am I nuts? So I've been putting it on my menus ever since, and people go nuts for it. Except I've been calling them Snickergasms because it's kind of cute.
That is catchy. Well, a classic is a classic. You can't beat the ingredients anyway. So, well, one of the things that I also really enjoyed reading in the book was what your favorite catering moment was. Is
Mm-hmm.
Valentine's Day back in 1998, and I was truly starstruck by all the people that were at Eve Ensler's Valentine's Day party and were doing excerpts from the vagina monologues. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Well, at that point, so I guess this is around 1990, 91. I have to go look it up, but this is a while ago, so it was early in my catering career. And I had been getting some very boring inquiries. People wanted me to make cucumber sandwiches, and on the Upper East Side would like make lobster thermidor. I was like, oh, kill me now. I wanted to do exciting food. And I had this horrible 80s name for my company back then called Parties by Rossi. And so it seemed to be encouraging really boring kinds of inquiries. And I said, I need to change the name of my company to something where these people won't call me in the first place, and I'll just get exciting calls. And I changed the name of the company to the Raging Skillet. And shortly thereafter, I got a call from Sally Fisher, who works with Eve Ensler, to cater the all-star tribute to the vagina monologues. But the catch was they were going to have like 2,500 people there and a special VIP after party for between 600 and 1,000 people. They wanted all the food to be anatomically correct. And I just knew right then and there, like I said, this is it. I don't know if you ever remembered that the miniseries Roots.
Yes. Mhm.
That was my Kunta Kinte, I found you. That was my moment. So it was lots of oval croutons with tuna tartare kind of drizzled down the center, or Korean barbecue beef done in an oval way with a tuft of black seaweed. And I'll let you sort of use your imagination.
Right.
But the pièce de résistance was in the green room. So in the green room, we had Glenn Close and Susan Sarandon and Whoopi Goldberg and Rosie Perez. And, oh, my God, Callista Flockhart was there, Marissa Tomei, everybody was there. And so I made this giant 4-foot oval vagina out of dried fruit. So it's just whirls of sun-dried apricot and sun-dried papaya and sun-dried pear and really this giant, gorgeous, edible fruit vagina. And then one perfect, strategically placed sun-dried cranberry for the money spot.
Right.
And the spot men seem to have so much trouble finding.
Right.
And so Susan Sarandon came along. Everyone was like so polite. Glenn Close just took a piece of apricot from an outer labia. Rosie Perez nibbled discreetly on some of the pear. But Susan Sarandon came over and grabbed the sun-dried cranberry, popped it in her mouth, giggled, and ran away. And I just screamed, that's it. That is it. That is my all-time favorite catering moment of my life. And now, all these years later, it still is. It's still my favorite moment.
Oh, wow. And you tell it quite well in the book as well. And again, the book is The Raging Skillet, the true life story of Chef Rossi, a memoir with recipes. If you want to get your hands on the book, it's available at Book Soup, Amazon, Barnes& and Noble. And if you need to know where to find it in a local bookstore, you can certainly look at it at indiebound.org. And where can they also keep in touch with where the play is and what comes up with the second book? Is there a website that they can check out for
Well,
that too?
I have a Facebook page, which is Chef Rossi NYC. So it's ChefRossi NYC. That's my Facebook page. And I'm Chef Rossi on Twitter, and I'm Chef Rossi NYC again on Instagram. And the play is continuing to roll, so definitely stay in touch. If you're in Rochester, get your tuchus over. It's really great. The chick who's playing me is a rock star. She pumps some serious iron, too.
Nice.
Stephanie Russa.
Uh-huh.
Her name is Stephanie Russa, and I love that. Rossi and Russa. It just cracks me up. And the woman who's playing my mother's name is Davida Bloom, which also cracks me up because that's part of my Jewish name. So it's sort of feeling very Kismet-like over there.
Right.
And going to an awesome, awesome run in Sedona, Arizona in May of 2020. And I'm trying to work something out with this really wonderful theater in New Jersey. And of course, we always wanted to go to Manhattan. But so we're continuing to push. And I'm hoping that you will be able to read Queen of the Jews within a year or two. I know it takes a while in the publishing world. But that one, I'm also writing the play and the screenplay floor. So I got my heart set on Natasha Lyonne playing me.
Oh, nice. Well,
and I want Harvey Fierstein to play my mother.
I think that she would be very proud of that.
I think so, too.
Well, I look forward to following your progress in the play as well as the book and the next book. And again, thank you, Chef Rossi, so much for joining us this evening. And I am definitely going to stay in touch.
Oh, gorgeous. I had a fabulous time with you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye, sweetie.
Bye-bye.
Bye, sweetie.
Bye-bye.
Bye, sweetie.